The cursor blinked on the screen, a steady pulse against the blank white page. Daniel sat in his small apartment, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the corner filling the silence. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, untouched, but he hadn't noticed. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, and pressed his palms against his temples. He had once imagined himself writing brilliant strategies, proposals, or even novels. Now, at 27, he found himself staring at documents he never finished and job applications he never sent. Outside, the city moved on without him. Cars lined up at the intersection. People hurried to offices, stores, or cafes, their lives filled with direction. Daniel watched them from his window, trying to guess what it might feel like to wake up with certainty, to move through the day without the heavy fog of doubt. He envied their pace, their energy, their visible momentum. He wasn't completely without achievements. After university, he had managed to get a stable job in marketing. He was good at it, often praised for his ideas, but every morning felt heavier than the last. He would scroll through social media and see classmates announcing promotions, weddings, travels abroad. Their smiling faces seemed to underline his own dissatisfaction. He told himself it was not envy, but it gnawed at him anyway. The days blurred together. Weekends offered no relief, just longer stretches of time where he thought about what he should be doing but couldn't bring himself to start. His apartment reflected the state of his mind. Dishes piled up, laundry half-folded, books opened but never finished. Sometimes he wondered if he was just lazy. Other times he feared that this was all life would ever be. Yet, Daniel wasn't without good qualities. He was generous to his friends, always ready to listen, and quick to help with their problems. Ironically, he could offer them encouragement he couldn't find for himself. He was both caring and critical, capable of giving light to others while stumbling in his own darkness. That contradiction unsettled him. One late evening, after another day of unanswered emails and unfinished drafts, Daniel decided to take a walk. The air was cool, the streets dimly lit. He wandered aimlessly until he reached a park he used to visit during college. The benches were old, the fountain in the center barely working, but the quiet comforted him. He sat down and let his shoulders relax. It was here, in the stillness, that Daniel admitted something he had resisted for months. He was not broken, only lost. The thought startled him. For so long, he had labeled himself as failing to keep up, failing to achieve, failing to be who he thought he should be. But sitting there, watching leaves drift across the ground, he realized that being lost was different from being broken. Being lost meant he was still searching. That small shift did not solve everything. The next morning, his desk was still cluttered, the emails still unanswered. But for the first time in months, he opened a notebook, not for work, but for himself. He wrote down 3 things he wanted to try: learn photography, reconnect with an old friend, and send at least 1 job application by the end of the week. They were small, almost trivial goals, but they gave him a direction. Over the next few days, he stumbled. Some evenings he returned home and sank into the couch, scrolling mindlessly until midnight. Other times he followed through. He bought a second-hand camera and took blurry shots of the city skyline. He reached out to a college friend who invited him for coffee. They laughed awkwardly at first, then warmly, remembering shared struggles. And eventually, he sent that job application. Not to a dream company, but to a place that aligned better with his interests. Daniel's life did not transform overnight. The pressure, the comparisons, the questions, they lingered. But there was movement now, however slight. He noticed that the fog didn't feel as heavy when he had even a small plan for the day. He discovered that progress was not about a perfect leap forward, but about choosing not to stay completely still. Quarter-life crisis, he realized, wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was quieter than that. It was the steady erosion of certainty, the daily weight of doubt, and the effort to rebuild meaning piece by piece. It was messy, inconsistent, and deeply human. On another late evening, Daniel stood by his window again. The city outside still moved quickly, people rushing in different directions. But this time, he did not envy them. He understood that their lives were not as perfect as they appeared, that everyone carried struggles hidden behind polished surfaces. He took a sip of warm coffee, freshly made, and let the moment settle. He did not know exactly where he was going, but he was no longer paralyzed by where he wasn't. And for now, that was enough.